Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys of Magic. This is Hunter and Steven. Say what up, Steven.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back. We are doing another upgrade video from the Final Fantasy Precon text. This one is Counter Blitz. Steven, I'm very excited to see what you've done with this upgrade. But
Yeah, I'm kind of pumped as well.
yeah, but before we go ahead and get started, I just want to remind everybody that this is going to be the upgrade to the face commander, which is Tidus. If you guys wanted to see the backup commander, which is Yuna, early, it's going to be over on our Patreon. Check that out. Otherwise, stay here. It'll be here in a couple of weeks. But let's go ahead and get started with this upgrade, Steven. But first, talk to me about Tidus, Yuna's Guardian, and kind of what the deck wants to do around that.
Yeah, so Tidus is the helm for the counter blitz deck. It is quite a fun deck. I don't really do the +1/+1 counters or Bant, to be quite honest with you. So this was definitely out of my comfort wheel, but it was pretty fun to do. Tidus is going to be a green, a white, and a blue. It's a 3/3 legendary creature, human warrior. Then at the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may move a counter from target creature you control onto a second target creature you control. It also has cheer because he's cheerful. He's smiling. Look at that photo. It says whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and proliferate, and then you do this only once each turn. So this is counters. Basically, you want to have huge creatures and then swing with those huge creatures. So I kind of built the deck around that.
All right, I'm excited as the resident counter player here on the channel. This piqued my interest, so I'm very curious to see what you've done with these upgrades. So let's go ahead and get started, but first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's video is sponsored by Evoke the Art and their new Gradient Craft token series. This token set features 50 high-quality tokens in some stunning gradient art style, featuring some original art, free of any AI-generated designs, ensuring authentic and unique visuals, designed for players who appreciate both function and aesthetics. These will bring a vibrant and distinct look to your battlefield. Head over to zaximusstudios.etsy.com for more information on picking up these and more tokens. The link will be in the description. We got a special gift for all of our Guys That Magic fans. Use the code WhatsUpNerds at checkout to get 10% off your order and get this awesome Guys That Magic treasure token. Huge thanks to all of our friends over at Evoke the Art. Now let's get back to the video.
All right, Steven, let's go ahead and get into these additions. But as a reminder, all the prices you see on screen are for the lowest printing of that card. And at time of recording, the prices could fluctuate. So let's go ahead and get into the additions.
Yeah, so I did touch the creature base a good amount. I added 7 creatures actually. So first one we'll talk about is going to be Champion of Lambholt. This is 1 and 2 green for a 1/1. It says creatures with power less than Champion of Lambholt's power can't block creatures you control. Then whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is an amazing card for this deck because obviously if we don't have trample, we do have to find another way to get around our opponents maybe having that 1/1 blocker that gets stopped by a 20/20 creature on our side. So it is kind of annoying. Champion of Lambholt here is going to be basically almost winning us, probably. I mean, usually it's a game ender in my mind.
Definitely. Like I said, I'm the counter guy. This goes in all my decks. Champion of Lambholt is fantastic.
But Hunter, like I said, obviously we don't have a lot of trample in this deck. What's a good way to get trample in a deck with green? I don't know. Kodama of the West Tree. So 2 and a green comes down super cheap. It's a 3/3. It's got reach, which is fun. And it says modified creatures you control have trample. To have a modified creature, if you don't know, equipments, auras, and then also counters are considered modifications. It also says whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This deck out of the box doesn't have a ton of ramp. I think for artifacts, it has an arcane signet, a soul ring, and an ever-flowing chalice. So it doesn't even have like the signets or the talismans in our colors. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so I really wanted something to help us get more ramp going and then also give us that trample.
Yeah. Any type of counters are modifications. So depending on what
Yep.
kind of counters you're putting on a creature, doesn't matter. It's got trample now. I'm here
Yeah, we
for
might
it.
be putting a couple of weird counters on our stuff. So stay tuned.
All right.
All right, moving on to the next creature, we have Kami of Whispered Hopes. This is 2 and a green for a 1/1. Basically, this is in here to help us with those +1/+1 counters. So if one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a permanent you control, that many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on that permanent instead. You can also tap Kami and add X mana of any one color where X is Kami's power. So technically, when it comes down, really just tapping for 1 mana. But in this deck, I wouldn't be surprised if the next turn we can tap this for, I don't know, 45 or 100. I don't know.
Yeah. Cameo Whisper Hopes gets out of control very quickly. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's honestly one of my favorite cards. It's not terribly expensive, which is really cool as well. And then coming in at 3 mana, it's just such a good option.
It really is. Moving on, I do see, like you mentioned, 7 total creatures. So here are 4 more.
Yeah, so 4 more. So obviously we're putting counters on stuff. So Danny Pink had to make its way into this deck. This is 3 and a blue for a 4/3. It's got Mentor. Don't really care about that, I'll be honest with you. But the main thing I care about is creatures you control have, whenever one or more counters are put on this creature for the first time each turn, draw a card. So it is not uncommon in this deck to put +1/+1 counters on all of our creatures in a single turn. So if we could draw like 15 cards, I'm here for it.
Hey, I've heard someone say card draw wins games.
Card draw does win games, and this deck draws a aggressive amount of cards. Moving on to Dreamtide Whale, probably one of my new favorite cards in Magic. I think this has honestly probably hit the top 10 for me, which I know sounds crazy. But this is 3 mana for a 7/5. It's got Vanishing 2. If you don't know what Vanishing 2 is, essentially it's just going to come in with 2 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove one of those. Once the last one's removed, you sacrifice it. So technically, you have 2 turns with this card. But again, this deck, Tidus does the proliferate thing when we deal damage, so we can technically make extra vanishing counters, which is really cool. It also says when a player casts their second spell each turn, proliferate. So really fun thing to do with Dreamtide Whale is obviously we're playing Magic with 3 other people. Most of the time, nobody's playing just one spell. So if this is on the field and we have a full turn cycle, essentially you can have 4 different instances of proliferate, which is just insane to think about. So by the time it gets back to you, you cast your 2 spells to get that extra one. I mean, boom. You have now put at least 4 more counters on all your creatures.
Yeah. Dreamtide Whale is going to be sticking around for a lot longer than those 2 vanishing counters, based on what I've seen so far. Tidus, it's a great include here.
Yeah. Moving on to Evolution Stage, this is 2 and a green for a 3/2. It says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. So this is kind of like a weird include. I do like this one. There's definitely like a couple other ones you could kind of throw in its place, like Gaia Sage or something like that. Because there's not a ton of ramp in this deck. I did add a little bit into the deck. But the main reason why I wanted to throw Evolution Sage in here is with Kodama being in here and the extra little ramp pieces and just drawing lands throughout the game, obviously. Just being able to proliferate all your stuff just by playing a land, I think is just an incredible piece of value here.
Keep proliferating. Speaking of keeping proliferating.
Yeah, we're going to do it a lot. So Tekuthal is here as well. This is Inquiry Dominus. This is 2 and 2 blue for a 3/5. It's got flying, which is amazing. And then it also says if you would proliferate twice. It also has a fun ability where you can pay 1 and then 2 Phyrexian blue mana, so you can pay 4 life if you'd like instead of paying 2 blue. You remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control. Put an indestructible counter on Tekuthal. So really fun. Obviously, we're putting a ton of counters on our permanents already. So we can just go ahead and just take 3 of them off of a creature in case of board wipes coming around and just give this indestructible. I mean, the value with that and then having the ability to proliferate twice is just insane.
So you proliferate and then Evolution Stage proliferate, Dreamtime proliferates, your commander proliferates. I sense a pattern of a lot of counters.
Yeah. The counter theme here is quite strong.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see what other cards you're throwing in. I see 2 sorceries.
So let's move on to the sorceries. Obviously, how do you end a game? Other than, combat damage. And I thought to myself, what's a really fun card in green that could end a game in 1 turn for everybody? That's Triumph of the Hordes. So we have 2 and 2 green. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. Infect's just kind of fun. I mainly did this one for the trample, obviously.
Oh, obviously, right? Just
Yeah.
not the fact that you can also proliferate poison counters on people and kill them that way.
Whoa, hey, slow down. You know, I'm not saying that you're going to die to infect, but it's a very good option for to be honest with you. It's going to happen.
I see.
Threw in cultivate as well. So 2 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put one on the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle. The only 2 ramp cards in the deck was basically Farseek and 3 visits. So kind of wanted a little bit more. That's kind of why I threw some other creatures that help find the mana. I don't really understand. The deck comes with a ton of lands already at being 38 stock, but still, like the creature base in this deck was pretty hefty. So I definitely wanted a little bit more here.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Just you're a green deck. Why not cultivate?
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, I see 2 instants.
Yeah, so really fun one. You know me, I talk about combat tricks all the time. So, Gift of the Viper, 1 green, put a +1/+1 counter, a reach counter, and a death touch counter on target creature. Untap it. Instant speed, putting death touch on something is insane. So if we are swinging with a huge creature, it gets chump blocked, or we get some damage and whatever, it's tapped. And your opponent proceeds to try and swing something at you to deal a bunch of damage to you. 1 mana, I'm untapping my creature, I'm blocking with it, and whether it's big enough or not, it's going to die because of death touch.
And then later on, Tidus, you can move those counters to whatever creatures you need.
Yeah, Gift of the Viper coming in at 18 cents for this deck was such a good value include. It's not even funny.
I love this card.
Yeah. Another fun card for this deck that I love so much is Ripples of Potential for 1 and a blue. It says proliferate. Then choose any number of permanents you control that had a counter put on this way. Those permanents phase out. I kind of wanted to throw Heroic Intervention into the deck. I'll probably throw it in the 300. Okay, I'll be honest. I'm going to throw it in the 300. It's just a little bit expensive, so I definitely wanted to add some other fun things that help the deck out a little bit. And then once we get into that bigger batter upgrade, I'll definitely throw it in there. But still, for the 2 mana instant speed, kind of hopefully your creatures won't die if a board wipe happens. This is definitely going to be good. The reason why I kind of almost prefer Ripples over Heroic Intervention is it gets around exile effects, which is pretty cool. So,
and it proliferates.
Yeah, that's the name of the deck. Proliferate.
And then moving on back into the permanent department, we've got just a single enchantment.
Yeah, how can you not throw Innkeeper's Talent in a +1/+1 counter deck? So Innkeeper's Talent, 1 and a green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It's got 3 levels. You can pay a green to make it level 2. Permanents you control with counters on them have ward 1. Spoiler alert, we're going to have a lot of ward 1s going around. And then you can pay 3 and a green, upgrade it to level 3. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. So yeah, I can give you more poison counters? Question mark.
You definitely can do that.
Yeah, I could.
I love Innkeeper's Talent. This is one of my favorite enchantments ever since we've seen it printed back in Bloomburrow. So glad to see it here.
Solid card.
Moving on, finally, we are touching the land base. I know how you like to make things a little bit more spicy in that department. What are we throwing in?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. The bond lands have come down in price, I think a good amount. And at this point, I think they're auto-includes in every Precon year build. So obviously we are 3 colors, so I threw in all 3 bond lands for our colors. So Bountiful Promenade, Rejuvenating Springs, Sea of Clouds. Promenade will tap for a green and a white. The Rejuvenating Springs, a green and a blue, and then Sea of Clouds, a white and a blue. They'll all enter the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. I'll be honest with you, I normally make the joke that we're playing Commander, we'll always have 2 or more opponents. In this deck, we might not. It gets pretty aggressive pretty quick.
Gets spicy fast.
Mm-hmm. And then also I added a Spar's Headquarters. Because funny enough, Farseek and 3 Visits both search for a forest card, and it doesn't have to be basic. So you can go ahead and find this. Normally, I know it kind of sucks sometimes having to find a tap land, but this turns on a lot of the other cards in our land base to where we don't have to worry about them coming in tap. So I did want to include this one for sure.
Guarantees to hit one of your colors.
Mm-hmm.
But is that it, Steven? Is that all of the additions?
Those are all the additions, Hunter.
All right, well, let's get into the part that might be a bit painful. And the reason I say that is because we are playing with a Universes Beyond deck that a lot of people love. So, Steven, without further ado, let's get into these cuts of creatures first.
Yeah, and like you said, I will harp on it just a little bit more. Obviously, I know this is Final Fantasy. I tried looking at a lot of the Final Fantasy cards that were spoiled and are coming out of this set, and I just think a lot of the older, stuff kind of works a little bit better. But I did try and cut a majority of the non-Final Fantasy cards, so not a lot of the cuts are in the precon. Good amounts still are, but moving on, like you said, Hunter, to the creatures, we have Altered Ego. This is X2, a green and a blue. It can't be countered. It's a 0/0, and then it also says you may have this creature enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional +1/+1 counters on it. I like the utility. You can have this come in as pretty much anything on the battlefield, which is fun. But at the same time, this is such a hefty investment. So starting off at 4 mana, and then you have to make sure you pay a certain amount of X into it, and it just I just didn't really want to have to do that. Just because I mean, having a 1/1 and having to spend 5, yes, you could technically copy a good creature, but still, it's just a hefty investment, and I'd rather just do anything else.
Yeah, it's a copy effect that is a bit too much. I like how they're trying to do it. It's not too good in my opinion either.
Yeah. Moving on to Lord Hiskal Guado. This is 1 and a white for a 2/1. It's got flying. At the beginning of each end step, if you put a counter on a creature this turn, investigate. I don't like the investigate mechanic. I understand that it is card draw, and I do enjoy it, but it is 2 mana card draw essentially, and we have enough card draw in this deck to where I didn't really need this. And you know me, if you guys have been watching our videos for a while, I hate cutting the low end of the deck. I love low mana spells. This one just doesn't do anything for us in my mind.
Yeah, that one's a bit too rough in my opinion. It's not going to be the best.
Yep. Moving on to Sin Unending Cataclysm. This is 5, a green and a blue. It's a 5/5. It's got flying and trample, which is great. And then as it enters, remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Sin enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is twice the number of counters removed this way. When Sin dies, put its counters on target creature you control, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. This is a cool card. Don't get me wrong. This is Simic as Simic gets. But what I will say about it is it's expensive at 7 mana. It'll always be bigger than a 5/5 in this deck, or on the low end, it'll be a 5/5. It's pretty slow, and there's really not a lot of haste in this deck. So you're basically just kind of playing this. It sits around. It's going to eat up removal because everyone's going to see this huge card on the battlefield, and no one's going to want it to swing at it. So there's probably fun ways to build around this, but obviously we're not building around this. We're building around Tidus. So Sin had to just get the cut here.
It is a cool card. It is expensive at 7 mana. And obviously, to be that expensive, it has to do something cool. And it does. But yeah, I mean, you're cannibalizing the other counters to put more counters on this. I feel like you're trying to go a little bit more wide instead of tall. So, Sin Unending Cataclysm, powerful card. But I can see why it's being cut.
Yeah, I mean, really, and the last thing I'll say about it is, just if you're playing this on your first main, you're essentially just taking all the creatures with a ton of counters on them and putting this on this. So now all your creatures are so small, they're not going to really be that impactful. And then when this dies, all those counters just go onto one thing. So yeah, it's not great. But we can just move on because I could talk about how this card's not great. Sorry, Final Fantasy lovers. I'm sure it's a cool thing in the game, but not in Magic. Moving on to Summon Magus Sisters. This is 4 and a green. It's a 5/5. This one has haste, which is cool. It's also a saga, which is interesting. So it's got 3 chapters. But the bad thing about this is you're choosing the modes at random, which kind of sucks. So for each chapter, you can combine powers, which is put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature. You can defense, which is put a shield counter on a target creature, you gain 3 life, or you can fight. This creature fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Uh, it's the randomness that I don't like. If you could just pick one, I think this card probably would have stayed in the deck. But just the fact that I'm choosing one at random, I absolutely not. No. And then being a 5 mana 5/5 with haste is okay. It's almost like a French vanilla at that point. But again, the random is just a big no for me.
Yeah, that's weird. I was not expecting to see a random saga, but here we are.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
like
this is
you'd much rather do it in the order that it is.
Yeah, or even if it was one of those things was like, choose one that hasn't been chosen, I think would have been a little bit better because then you could start with the best one or at least be a little bit more situational with it. Because like let's just say there's no creatures on the field or the only creature on the field is a huge thing that you can't kill with this being a 5/5 and you have to hope that you have a bunch of counters on it. It
That's
just
true.
it's not good right now. We also have Sunscorch Regent getting the cut here. So 3 and 2 white for a 4/3. It's got flying, and then whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you gain 1 life. The life is nice. I'll be honest with you, with this deck, we're gonna be building quite a board state to where I'm not too worried about our life total getting hit. Uh, I do like flyers that are big and can get in for some damage because this is obviously going to be one of those things where you can probably get around and be a little bit more evasive. But again, it's 5 mana. There's a ton of other cards in the deck. I'd rather maybe cast 2 spells or maybe just one bigger one. I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about Sunscorch Regent that much anymore.
Yeah, this is always one that I end up taking out of my +1/+1 counter decks too, because it just honestly, as cool as it sounds, practicality for 5 mana, I want to do something else.
Yeah, and you are kind of basing your plays off of your opponent's casting spells, which they're going to do regardless. But, end all be all, it'll get back to your turn. This may be I don't know, maybe like a 7/6, but it's just, I don't know. If this had lifelink on it, maybe. I don't know. And then the last creature I'm getting rid of is going to be Tireless Tracker. This is 2 and a green for a 3/2. It's got landfall. Whenever a land you control enters the battlefield, investigate. Like I said, I don't really like the mechanic that much. And then whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on this. I think when they were building this precon, they basically just saw +1/+1 counter and just threw it in. That's pretty much my thought process on it. So I saw it and I was like, get it out of here.
It's what they do with precons, right? They throw in all of the kind of less valuable +1/+1 counter cards, and so far we've seen all the ones that you're taking out are the ones that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy just because I will say of the 6 creatures I'm getting rid of, 3 of them are from the Precon Final Fantasy Edition stuff, and then 3 of them are basically just reprints. So I kind of wanted to get a little bit of half and half there.
Yeah. Well, that's all the creatures, Steven. Let's go ahead and move on. It looks like you're taking out 2 instants to make room for those 2 other instants you threw in.
Yeah, so kind of same thing. I took out one of the Final Fantasy cards, threw out a reprint. I don't like this reprint whatsoever. So pull from tomorrow is X and 2 blue, draw X cards, then discard a card. I understand that this could be super powerful and you can draw and refill your hand. I just don't really enjoy it because I essentially always read this card as hold up a bunch of mana, wait till somebody's end step, and then you pay as much as you can into it, and then you have the chance to get this counter spelled, and then you feel really bad because you did nothing on your turn because you wanted to try and draw a bunch of cards. So this card, I pretty much remove it from every precon or deck I build.
Really what it is like 4 mana to just get 1 extra card.
Yeah, I mean, honest to God, yeah, it's this card's so bad. The return on it, like, unless you're playing a combo deck, which I'll raise my hand. I love playing combos. I will throw this in a combo deck that makes me infinite mana. I'm probably building a Vivi deck here in the next couple weeks, and I'll probably throw this in there. But even then, like, it's so situational. The last instant that we were talking about is going to be Yuna's Whistle. This is 1 and 2 green. It's got a paragraph of text. It says, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When you reveal a creature card this way, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the mana value of that card. The ceiling, super high. The floor, really low. We could maybe pull a walking ballista, which would be fun because that comes in this precon, but then you don't put any counters on anything. This is essentially just let's hope to God I get something good from the top of my library.
Yeah, this is definitely that random factor that the reason we got rid of summon is the same reason
Yeah.
here, right? 2 random, get it out.
Mm-hmm.
But that looks like the last of the non-permanents. Let's move on to the permanents again. We got 3 enchantments you're taking out.
Yep, so I got rid of Fight Rigging. This is 2 and a green. It has Hideaway 5. If you don't know what Hideaway is, so as this enters, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you exile 1 face down, and then you put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. Then if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. It's probably not going to be hard for us to get to that 7 power or greater. I just didn't really want to have a hideaway card in the deck. I just think it's pretty slow. Obviously, you play this early on, and you start building up to it, but it gets to that point where it's very, telegraphed what you're trying to do to a certain extent. Most of the time, people are going to forget this is even on the field. But yeah, I just it's not a card I really enjoy playing. So for my play style, I definitely just got rid of it.
It's definitely more of a gotcha card.
hmm
So it's not everybody's cup of tea. So if it's not in your build, get it out.
Yeah, I remember when this card was spoiled back in Yucapena, I thought it would be one of those things where you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control and then it fights another card. I think that would have been a little bit better. But just basically it's just 3 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on a card. But yeah, moving on, we have Summoner Sending. This is 1 and a white. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on that card if the exiled card's mana value is 4 or greater. Uh, Again, this is just kind of a weird one. I like it because, I mean, it's cool. I love the art, which is, I mean, beautiful. But we're getting rid of our graveyard, which we're not really a graveyard deck, so it doesn't really matter. But essentially, we're just getting a 1/1 spirit. It's not even like a copy of the card we're exiling, which I understand at 2 mana would be nuts. But regardless, it's not very helpful. It just makes a 1/1 little blocker.
Yeah, you're cannibalizing your opponent's graveyards as well. And hey, getting that 1/1, it's just not gonna do enough for you. I mean, it's cool. If you like the card, you keep the card in, right?
Yeah, I would much rather prefer if I'm doing a cannibalization of my opponent's graveyard, I'd much rather have like targeted removal at like instant speed. This at the end step, our opponent can do stuff on their turn, on other people's turns. There's too much going on in a game of Magic to where I need to worry about just one card on my end step. Moving on to Path of Discovery, this is 3 and a green. Whenever a creature you control enters, it explores. Explores fun. I'm not saying it's bad. I play hackball, but in this deck, it's not really needed. I'd rather just draw the cards rather than keep it on the top of my library and then also reveal that information to my opponents. And especially this coming in at 4 mana. Essentially, the way I read this is I play this for 4 and I have to wait an entire turn cycle and then maybe explore one time. There's so many other ways to put +1/+1 counters on our stuff. So this was a pretty quick cut. I won't lie.
Yeah, Path of Discovery is a bit of a setup card at 4 mana. So, hey, no need to explore in this deck when you're just proliferating so many times.
hmm
And finally, Steven, I know you love to go ahead and take out more lands than you add. And
hmm
once again, that seems to be the case. What lands are we removing?
I will say, stock this deck comes with 38 lands, which is, in my mind, so many. But with like I said early in the video, with the amount of ramp that's in this deck, it kind of needs a lot of the lands. So I added 4. I'm cutting 5. So I'm just cutting one card extra land. And to be honest with you, it was to make room for Tekkathal. So say what you will, but that's what I did. But yeah, so Ash Barrens immediately cut. I don't care for this card whatsoever. Uh, Comes in, taps for a colorless. So unless I have a turn 1 Soul Ring into my Arcane Signet, I never want to see this card in my hand. And then I also got Sungrass Prairie out of the deck. It's a filter land. Technically, it is in the 2 most popular colors in our deck. Our color pie is primarily green, white, and then blue at the lowest end. But I added the Sparrows headquarters, so I think I'm kind of good there. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these other 3 lands. These are all the reveal lands. I hate these with a fiery passion. They're probably, in my opinion, the worst lands in Magic. And I know it's crazy to think, but this deck comes stock with 3 basic islands, 3 basic forests, and 3 basic plains. And I know you don't technically have to reveal a basic, but most of the time that's probably what you're going to have in your hand. And then the other kind of cards that are lands in the deck that have those types are tap lands. So it's just very slow altogether. So Fortified Village, Port Town, and Vine Glimmer Snarl getting cut. I added the bond lands. They all come in basically untapped in my mind because we'll have 2 or more opponents. So I just think it's a pretty easy swap there. Probably get rid of the Scry lands in the $300 upgrade. And when I say probably, I am. Just because, obviously I feel like at a lower power, being at 100, a Scry land's a little bit more informative. Helps you out, doesn't reveal too much information to your opponent, which is nice as well. And yeah, I think it's just a little bit better.
All right. I like the cuts. I don't like the reveal lands either. But, Steven, is that your entire $100 upgrade to this counter Blitz deck?
Those are all the upgrades to the deck.
All right, Steven, I know you already know the question I'm about to ask. We saw all the prices of all the cards on the screen. If you take all those prices and add them all up, what is the total amount of money you spent? Because we gave you $100 to spend.
Yeah, so at the time of recording, if you take all the prices, we're looking at 104.59, which is slightly over budget. But to be honest with you, if you need the $5, shoot me a DM. I won't. I don't have it for you, but you can still shoot me a DM.
I was going to say, that's a lot of $5. Just
It's a lot of $5.
just give it to all of our audience. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
um,
all almost 20,000 of you. Thank
yeah,
you.
that's, I mean, hey,
It's a lot of math.
I'm proud of you for having that kind of money. That's crazy. Good luck.
I told you I don't have it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up, Steven. One more question. Tidus, Yuna's Guardian. Now that you've upgraded the deck, how do you feel about Tidus and the overall deck as a whole?
It's very fun. It's interesting because this deck comes stock with a combo in it. I tried not to concentrate on the combo, just because I feel like it takes away from the flavor of what you're trying to do. So the way I kind of built around it was card draw and ramp, and then also try and end the game with Triumph of the Hordes. And then if we draw into that combo, we draw into it. It'll be fun. But yeah, stay tuned if you want to see it sooner. Definitely check out the Patreon for Yuna Grand Summoner. I definitely went a little bit spicier with that one. But yeah, Tidus is really fun. I love the +1/+1 counters. You can play with this deck in so many different other ways with like Falco and putting shield counters, or if you want to put in any other counters like that. It definitely it can be built a vast variety of different ways, which I think what makes it kind of fun.
Definitely. Like I said at the beginning, I'm the go-to counter person. I like it a lot. Hey, I'm here for it. But what are your guys' thoughts? Comment down below. Let Steven know if there's something that he missed that you would have added. Maybe a card that Steven cut that you would immediately, or typing up, why did you cut this card? This card is so good.
All the
Explanation.
Final Fantasy cards.
Hey, we're sorry. All right. Always interested to hear guys' opinions. It makes us better deck builders for the future. Don't forget to hit the like button and stay subscribed to this channel because you don't want to miss out not only the $300 upgrade to this deck, but our gameplays when we play them against each other. It's going to be a fun one. In the description, you'll find a link to the Moxfield deck list if you guys wanted to play test it yourself. Right there, click on it, check it out. While you're there, you also see links to our social media accounts. Follow us on those as well. Stay up to date with everything else that we got going on. And on the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It really does mean the world to us. If you guys wanted to check out what they're seeing, which is not here on YouTube, like I said, early access, exclusive content, right over there. Link in the description as well. Check it out. Consider subscribing. And a very special shout out to our Gains Indestructible tier, starting with
Aaron Hill,
Aaron Martin,
Brian Gagnella,
Daryl Tripp,
Demarion Turner,
Dr. Rome,
Jimmy Ward,
Kevo,
Larry Killian,
Thrifty PSGR,
William Colombo.
Thank you guys so much for your added support. It really does mean the world to us. And until the next video, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Would you be mad if I just played all infinite combos?